Hi there, I'm Dani, spiritual therapist, and today I come before you with a warning, a loving warning, because this broadcast is incredibly deep and it might be for some incredibly emotional. The lady in the screen, one of my best friends on the planet, her name is Ronna Williams. We're going to be discussing the fact that she recently lost her little girl, her daughter, Mackenzie. And we're going to cover the loss of a child, the grieving process that we all find ourselves in at different times of life. And many of us have lost beloved ones, especially over the last 2 years. And so we'll be discussing routes and ways to get through that journey. And so before I introduce my friend Ronna, I wanted to let you know that this may not be the broadcast for you. If you are not ready to hear something like this, please save it for another time or skip it altogether with our love. This is for people who need the strength and the support, but also are going to enjoy hearing the journey of this Viking, this power goddess, this warrior of love that sits in front of you. This is by far, out of all the broadcasts I've done to date, one of my proudest, one of my most beloved, and one that has been trying to come together for a few months now. And we're going to start by introducing my friend and mother and nurse, Ronna Williams. Welcome, my darling.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing good.
Hello,
doing
everyone.
good. So Ronna, I know that we're going to start really with your background and how you came to be a mother and then go on to adopt Mackenzie and her brother and sister that came to be. Would you like to share your tattoo of your little girl?
Sure.
It's so beautiful. And just stay there for a minute. Guys, everyone, this is such a lifelike portrait of Mackenzie. She's just such an angel. And the person that did that tattoo, Ronna, they did such a good job.
You
A
did.
good job.
You really
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. That little light of light that she is and that she was. I was a little delayed, Ronna, as you know, like getting on, fiddling with lights and stuff. And I'm thinking something's missing, something's missing. And it was these. The bracelets that she Mackenzie made. And I often wear these. I often wear them on my broadcast, her bracelets. I often do. And today it was like it was the thing that was missing. So beautiful. So Ronna, we're going to start with your background and leading up to, because your story is fascinating. And you and I, as you know, we were making a movie documentary, and was it 2015, 2016, with my Kids Soul Speak program. And Kenzie was always going to be the beginning, the middle, and the end. We were hoping that she would be fit enough, guys, to have a kidney transplant, but unfortunately that didn't come to pass. But that's where we met, and we filmed a lot of this, but there's nothing like hearing it again, girls. So I just want to hand over to you for you to start sharing the story of your life.
Okay. It started with these beautiful people. That's my mother and my father. My father's Black and my mother's Italian. They came together in the late 50s. They had my brother in 59. They were previously married, both of them, and had children. And when they got together, they started some stuff. There was a lot of prejudice, and her father actually tore up her birth certificate and disowned her. But her mother would sneak and come and visit us. And her sister, one sister in particular, my Auntie Annie, was like, she always came around. But so I grew up, I was born in 63. So I grew up in a small city, Fresno, California. And either I wasn't aware of it, or it wasn't a lot of biracial marriages. Like, I remember her trying to get her kids, and the judge saying in court, how would they feel being raised by Blacks, around Blacks or coloreds? whatever was the term then. So yeah, they had to even go to a smaller town, which I find ironic, to get married, because when they got married in Fresno, they wasn't married a biracial couple. So I grew up not really knowing where to fit in. I experienced racial tension on both sides, you know. Spent most of my life trying to play myself down and play the product of a biracial marriage myself. I had a certain type of beauty that aroused a really sick curiosity in men and boys. So it just seemed like everybody was always trying to do things they probably shouldn't be trying to do. So I just mostly tried to play myself down between how I was treated, you know, by other women and the unwanted attention of grown ass men and older boys. So I spent a lot of time doing that. Eventually, so I was also the black sheep of the family. I always questioned everything, hard-headed, didn't want to listen, went through those teenage years. I was a hot mess and sold drugs. And that was during the crack epidemic, because it was.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Can you share, first of all, and it's just so harrowing listening to how your mum and dad were so just like abused because they were Italian and African American, and the trauma, and the judge judging her, saying, what, can you imagine how awful it is to bring up your children with a black man? I mean, it's just so beyond thinking, the cruelty of that. And then, you know, being like grown men, you know, child molesters coming after you because you had this exotic beauty, and then you just had to play small your whole life because you were beautiful and intelligent and a fire and a spark. And then now cut to you going into the story of when you were selling drugs. Can you go a little bit more into what the drugs were, why you did that, and that kind of story? Because that's kind of really a massive part of who you became to this day.
Well, another thing was like, I was attracted to that type of lifestyle, was exciting to me. Don't know why, but it was an attraction there. It was different, you know. Also the material things, it gave you a sense of freedom where you like, I don't have to put up with this, or I don't have to, because I grew up in a time where like men ran everything, and God bless them, and they could run it as long as they can run it. I don't mind that, but a lot of women didn't have a say because the men were their financial backing.
Yeah.
And I just never wanted to be that person. I wanted to authentically love somebody or be with somebody. So I guess the excitement and the independence, and I was kind of tomboyish. I loved boys, but I was tomboyish, and I hung out with most of the boys, you know. I hung out with my brother. He was my hero. He was doing things too, like we got caught up in the street life. He got on drugs, and I played around with him, but I just never liked anything running my mind. So I think that kind of saved me. And so he left and went to the military. And he did it because we came up like in a great family, we had the foundation, but where we grew up, that's what we saw. And we saw the part where people had more things, and we saw the struggle with our parents, who my father worked always, you know, and so it was attractive. The lifestyle was attractive to us. And it brings tears to my eyes because he probably doesn't even realize it. But when he left to go to the military to save himself,
Yeah.
because he was doing things he thought he would never do, that's what he told me.
Yeah.
I felt abandoned.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Because that was my,
He was your rock.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he was. He protected his little sister. He loved me to life.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what I did, you know, which I could say that my parents also. So I had my first child at 17 years old, years young.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in 1980. And within the span between 1980 and 1990, I had 4 children, 3 girls and a boy. And I always felt like a tug of war going on inside me. I knew what was right and I wanted to be right, but I was pulled to this way because I don't know, the attraction, and it was easier for me. I thought, you know, the glamour, you think, because you
Yeah.
don't see the rest. You don't see all the lives you hurt, all the people you hurt, and we grew up in a time, if people could remember, that was supposed to be cocaine was supposed to be a rich man's high, and it wasn't addicting because at that time people were on heroin and you could just see their addiction. But then when freebasing came in, I started, like I would always ask questions. I was like, you guys said it's not addicting, right? But you've been at the table for 3 days saying this is your last hit. And I didn't smoke, like I would snort here and there, but honey, they would go through all of their coke in mine. Because like I said, I'm sitting up there asking questions like, you're messing off my high, you know, but I'm seeing like, this is some other stuff, you know, people were really getting addicted to it and it was causing them to do things that were not really in their character, you know, like neglecting their children, selling their bodies, stealing, you know, just from people they love and everything.
Can you go back a little bit? Because you brought in the birth of your first child when you were 17, but you were getting into drugs and selling drugs around 15 at school and running, you called it the fast life in our other broadcast, but you were all caught up. Can you just go a little bit into the boys or the men that influenced you and got you on that path?
When I was 15, I met my first daughter's father, and he was 24, and he was a big time heroin dealer and showered me with a lot of money and everything. But like I said, when the freebasing came out, it changed everybody. It was like the living dead at night. It was terrible. Like it swept through and caused a lot of damage, and it had a lot of people, a lot of grandmothers raising their grandchildren, you know, and like our communities, and maybe it's in others, but I could speak for our community. It's like a thing where we wouldn't get nobody involved. They would just raise their grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they didn't have legal custody, but sometimes it got to that point where they have to get legal custody of their grandkids.
Yeah.
And that was my story with all 4 of my children. They're by different dads, and the 3 older children, their fathers were drug dealers, and then they got on it.
Yeah, turn that off, Dani. There you go.
Now, you know, I don't want to do too much because I might turn it all the way out.
You're doing great. This is your first time on Zoom and you're doing amazing, amazing, amazing. Keep going, sweetie.
So, where was I at?
3 kids. So 3 kids. This is before you had your 4th child. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And then I had the fourth one too, and I was still
But
like,
where? You've jumped again. Where were you when you were pregnant with your fourth child?
okay,
Yeah.
that's the story.
Very important, darling.
We get
It's
to
like
the
a
good
crucial.
part.
It's a good job
Like
I'm here.
I told you, and in and out of that time, I must tell you, my father was a Republican, and he had connections because he helped to get a lot of judges, elected. So when I would get in trouble, they make that phone call, and they would think they was saving Ronna. They was hurting her because I should have went a long time ago. But anyway, I was on the freeway going to Los Angeles, and I got pulled over, and I had some personal coke on me, and I got busted for that. And I was out of my father's jurisdiction. He couldn't save me then. So, but it was like the time that I say God, because that's who I believe in, and just that higher power sitting me down and telling me, look, little hard-headed girl, I have other things planned for you. So I needed that space to get my life together because it changed my life. Before, like I told you, it was like a tug of war. Before I got busted this last time, I went to school to be a CNA, and then I got on the waiting list. This was in 1989. I got on the waiting list for the LVN or LPN program, licensed practical nurse. I was on the waiting list. It was a 2 years waiting list, and I needed to graduate because, of course, I dropped out of school when I got pregnant. So I just needed a diploma or a GED. So back to me getting busted and going to jail. So I was sentenced to a year in jail, and I ended up doing only 3 months because after I was pregnant in jail, I started spotting. So they put me in a single cell where it's called like you're in there 23 hours a day, and then you have 1 hour out every day so that you could shower and make your phone calls. And it's like, I think it's like 12 by 4 or something. And it's your bed, it's the toilet next to you, and the drinking water is on top of the toilet. See, it's on top of the toilet, the back of the toilet. And I was like, this is not me. And then at this time, this particular, it wasn't really like a jail, it was like a camp. It was being sued because a pregnant lady lost her baby due to their negligence. So they were really taking care of the pregnant women, and the lawyers were coming to see us and everything. So they would take us and drop us off at the county in these bright orange, oh my God, jumpsuits. It was so embarrassing to me. I used to tell the guards, I'm never coming back here again. They said, we hear that all the time. I said, watch. And then the doctors would come and see me. And there was one lady, she was a Black woman. She was an LVN. I told her, I said, you know what? I wanted to be a nurse, but I think I messed that up. She said, no, honey, let me tell you something. You could be anything you want to be. You just got to believe in God because he could do anything. And it stood with me. It stuck. Okay. So I'm pregnant in there. And all the women that had to work in the kitchen and stuff, they would bring me lemons and salt. Oh my God.
Wow.
So, but anyway, fast forward to the 3 months of me getting out. It was like a couple of days. It was in March. Oh my God. Oh my God. Tomorrow is my anniversary of getting out of jail.
Whoa.
Oh my God. I didn't even
Goosebumps. Woo!
So it was, I got out March 27th, 1990. But this was like the 20 something. This girl told me, are you going up for sheriff's parole? I said, what's that? She said, girl, if you did a third of your time, which you have already done, she said, you can get out early. You got to go in front of a board, like a parole board, and they got to interview you. So I said, for real, what do I do? And she told me where to go sign up. So I signed up and I went in front of the board and I'm looking at all these women. I said, look, I'm not going to candy coat shit. Okay. This is why I did this, that, and the other. And this is so degrading to me. I have never been so humiliated in my life, you know, and I just told them where I came from. And I just gave them my life story and I kept it real. That's all I know how to be is real. Yeah. So they granted me sheriff's parole.
Amazing, amazing.
So I had to pay fines. I had to report. I had to do everything I had to do. I was the only one who completed sheriff's parole.
That's amazing. Ronna, can we share that little bit when you were in that tiny coffin of a cell and you were trying to breathe through the bars, remember, with the Bible? And that's a beautiful, poignant moment.
Yeah. So when they had me single cell, I felt like the walls were closing in and I was going crazy, okay? So I would have to walk to the end of the cell and put my face out and look into a bigger area. And something said, pray. So I asked them for a Bible and they brought me a Bible and I started reading the Bible and just praying. So that like, it was really the intimate time with God that I needed to change my life. And the other thing was happening, my oldest brother in Los Angeles, he was dying of colon cancer. And my grandmother had Alzheimer's. So my dad would go to Los Angeles and see his mother who wasn't doing well, see his baby, his firstborn son, rather his oldest, dying of colon cancer, then come and see his baby in jail, you know, with her kids, because my parents took care of my kids. And my sister also, Brittany was her, yeah, Debbie, your favorite, but it's all good. So just looking in his eyes, all of this made a difference, you know, and just seeing my kids. And at first they like couldn't touch me. And Brittany was like kind of a spunky one. And the babysitter, she was at the babysitter's house and someone walked in. She said, where's Ronna? She's at school and you better not talk about her. And Brittany was only about 3 years old. Or 4, but she did not play. And just how she was protective, you know. Yeah. All of them are of me. They've been patient with me, but I tried to be the best I could be for what I knew. And there was a time when I was very, very selfish, but I had some wonderful kids. I did.
I know.
And I knew how it looked, the street life. So anyway, I got out in 1990, March 27, 1990. My sister picked me up. And in June, my father in June, he was at my mother's job picnic, and he had a heart attack. So he had to have tests done and everything. And I think it was right before the 4th of July, it was on the 3rd of July, 1990. They were like, we need to get you to Stanford right away. So he's like, I'm 8 months pregnant at this time, right? He's like, oh no, my daughter will drive me, not realizing like this is some serious stuff. So we're thinking in our head, because they wanted to take him in the ambulance. But since he was like, they were gonna let him drive, he said, well, he did say his daughter would drive him. We're thinking, okay, they're not gonna operate tomorrow because it's the 4th of July. His arteries, 3 of them were like 90% closed. So he was a ticking time bomb. He never had the flap over his valve. So he always had a heart murmur, but I guess no one really ever looked into it. So he's showing me all of his insurances. He's buying the guys across the street because they used to sit out and play cards. One thing about our neighborhood, it was like a family, man. They would look out. So he's he's paying them, he's buying them a drink and saying, hey, if I don't see you again, it was saying all of his goodbyes. So I'm on the freeway taking him to Stanford at 12 midnight. And anybody that knows me, my bedtime is probably 6 or 7, right? I'm a morning person. I'll be up at 4, but I'm going to sleep early. So I drove him in, and the doctors were pacing back and forth. They said, we thought we were going to have a helicopter come and look for you. Come on, let's go get your blood test done. And we were like, what? Oh yeah, he's getting surgery in the morning. So his surgery was like 13 hours. My brother flew in. We had to pick him up in Frisco. Mind you, when I left Fresno, it was like 113. We leave all cute, like summertime. There it's foggy and it's cold. So eventually I had to run home and pack up some more clothes. But so he ended up coming home about 2 weeks after his surgery, but we stayed there with him. And I took care of him while he was getting well and drove him around, took him to his doctor's appointments and everything. And then I had my baby on the 14th of August.
Hit it. Turn the volume, turn the, actually leave it. Guys, this is Ronna's first time.
Phone, and I could.
It's okay. No, we'll just continue. It's good. We're good.
Okay. Good. So I had Mandy, and I went and I was getting aid for the kids, but I was still a hustler, right? Not illegal hustling. I was helping this man, this real estate guy. He would rent out places. Oh my God, it would be so horrible. So I would go there and clean up the places and everything for him, get them ready to rent. And that was right after I had Mandy. And then I got a letter from, I started school, remember, because I told you I dropped out in the 10th grade. So that was in 1990. I started school September 1990. I did night school, and in the daytime I did in-home health services. I had 2 ladies that I worked for, and I took care of them in the day. And then at night I went to night school. So I did that. And then June of 92, I graduated with my diploma. Yes, and walked my old butt across the stage. I sure did.
God.
I was like 29. I didn't care.
But you did it.
My kids was there cheering me on, my sister, my mom, my dad. And then, I kid you not, I got a letter from the LVN program, like clockwork, right after I graduated. It said, are you still interested in the nursing program? It will start in September. I was so happy. I was like, oh my God, like, remember what the nurse told me?
Yes.
God could do anything but God. I always say that when I get overwhelmed. I say, but God. So I went to the nursing program. I started that in September. I prayed to God. I said, God, if I have to be sick, let it be like on my days off or whatever. And it took 2 years or like 18 months, but I was never sick. First off, I was on aid. So I self-initiated myself into the GAIN program. It's a program that'll let you go to school to pay for gas, a babysitter, whatever, trying to get you off of welfare. So I did that. They paid for all my uniforms. They paid for gas money. They paid for a babysitter for me. And my parents were retired then, so they were able to take care of my babies. And I went through that course, graduated at the top of my class, never missed a day.
Amazing.
I think I got sick one time, and it was not on a school day.
Right. Yeah, so amazing.
So I graduated from there June of 94. Now, something nobody has ever heard of. I don't know if they do that. I don't know if it was part of the sheriff's parole program, but in May of 94, I got a letter from the Kern County courts asking, would I like to get my misdemeanor knocked down to, my felony knocked down to a misdemeanor. So I went in front of the judge. I told him everything I had done since I got out, released from jail, and had all my paperwork with me. And he granted me, it's a 1203.4. It gives you your rights back, and it knocks it down. And so that was so I graduated in 94, but still I had to mention this to the state to ask, can I take the test? I had this happened, and I've completed this, that. And when I got that letter saying I could take the test with the date to take the test, it was the happiest time. But you know how you have your naysayers, they're like, girl, nobody's gonna let you be a nurse. You have a drug, you got a drug record. You're not gonna you're around drugs. They're not gonna. I said, honey, God will be the one to let me know if that's so, but I need to know I could do something more than hustle.
Yeah.
I need to know that I could do something else, even if I gave it the best that I had in me to give. And if it didn't work out, it just wouldn't work out. But they granted me the right to take the test. I took it October 15th, 94. No, September. And I got my results back October, a whole month afterwards.
Amazing.
And
That's amazing. This is such a beautiful story for anyone with a kid who's in trouble or an adult themselves who's had a similar, life to you that can hear, and you're giving the codes, the police codes, the right license numbers to say to anyone who's got a felony that can get it knocked down to a misdemeanor. Thank you so much. This broadcast is so important on so many levels and layers to really bless humanity. And we're going to come to, Mackenzie and her life and her passing. But I remember something so distinct, a mantra that you said to yourself, a promise that you made to yourself in that jail cell where you can't fucking breathe and you're pressing your mouth for breath because you're so claustrophobic. What did you claim?
I said that I wouldn't be the problem, I would be the solution. So I started working as a nurse, and then eventually in 2003, I moved to Los Angeles. I worked for a group home with the developmentally disabled. And one night,
right. So this is one of the most important parts. Guys, all of you emailing me and leaving me messages and doing private sessions with me, bless your hearts, all of you. You're always asking, what's my mission? What's my mission? What's my mission? First, your mission is to heal you. But second of all, how about learning about group homes? Could you briefly explain what a group home is and what kind of children end up there, please?
A group home, this particular one is for the developmentally disabled. And there's 6, you could have 6 children to a home. And the guy that I worked for, he had 9 of them, but we were in charge of 3 of them. And he had around the clock nursing, and I would be a night nurse because I lived in Los Angeles and I have to live in I have to feel comfortable where I live. I was working 65 to 80 hours a week. I had a couple of jobs, 2 or 3 jobs. So I was at my other job. This was February 15th, 2008. I was at that job, and I would get report from the nurse because she leaves at 10 and I got there at 10:30. So she would give me report over the phone. She said, wait till you see this little girl, you are gonna fall in love with her. Because Ronna fell in love with everybody and always wanted to take them home. But I was like, what's new? She said, no, you'll see. So I go to work and she's like this, and she has her feeding tube in her tummy and she's hooked up, and my heart melted. She was like a little angel. And then at the time, I only had 2 grandchildren. They were twins, and they had the same big heads. Yes, Raven and Raquel, but they looked alike. And once I became a part of Mackenzie's life, I dressed them alike. I took Mackenzie with me. We were inseparable. And
so go back. This is such a pivotal moment. So you come to work, your nurse colleague has said you're going to fall in love with this new little girl who's been put into the group home to live permanently, because that's what these children do. For whatever reason, there's some of them are throwaway children. Some parents just cannot take care of them.
With Mackenzie's story, it was sad because she come from a family of, I think, 7 siblings, and her parents got on drugs, and her mother wasn't taking her to her appointments. She would, at the time she was on home dialysis through her tummy. They would hook her up.
Because why, Ronna? What was wrong with
at that time, she had 1 kidney, but it was not working. So it cleanses her blood and everything, and it through her fluids. So she would hook her up at night. And I learned this from the older kids later. She would hook her up on that machine at night, which is, you really have to watch, because it could pull too much fluid and you could die on those, if you're not watching. And they would have to go to the dope house and find her to get her to take Mackenzie off. Well, finally, she was missing appointments. And before then, her mother and father, they were great. They dressed Mackenzie nicely. She came from a family like ours, they were good. And like I said, crack came into the situation and it changed things. So her siblings and her were taken. At the time, it was 5 of them. No, 6 of them. Her little sister, and her 4 older brothers. They were taken. I think the 2 older ones might have been 18 or 17 and 18. So Mackenzie had to go to Children's Hospital and live there for a whole year, because it's hard to find somebody to take care of special needs kids, But this traveling nurse fell in love with Mackenzie and took her home. But Mackenzie had a lot of underlying other problems that, because of dialysis, like they go through a lot. And the lady couldn't work. She didn't have people to help her, because she was from Detroit. So she had to turn Mackenzie over after 3 months. So she ended up at my group home, because I doubt if I would have ran into her at Children's Hospital.
Yeah.
So she bridged the gap.
And how old's Mackenzie when you met her the first time?
7.
And she's just got 1 kidney.
7 years old. And she was, so when I met her, she was really, really clingy. I brought her a cell phone at 7 because, mind you, not one mother was out of her life, but 2. Remember the nurse who took her in? So who's to say I was going to stay around, And I was worried about my record, because no matter what I do, you have to go back and address that, which we shouldn't,
Yeah.
But I could understand it. It's about kids, taking care of kids and things. So I started taking her home first, because at that point, I had been at my job for a while, and they trusted me. And it was kind of like, you could take her home, but have her back for dialysis, because she would have to leave for dialysis like at 5:30 in the morning, because she was like first on the machine. So at 6, she'd have to be there. So I would get her dressed and take her back to the group home, and then they would take her to dialysis. But that's where it all began.
You fell in love, and you basically, can you talk a little bit more about like the physical condition that Mackenzie was in?
It was always something like, for one, she had a catheter. Her veins weren't big enough for her to get a fistula. So the catheters, they always collapse. So it's forever, like she was always in and out, getting that surgery, getting a new catheter placed and a lot of other issues. And one thing I noticed when I became her nurse, she was on antibiotics. And so she had the runs and I was changing her. And I noticed that it was coming from both places. Like, so she had a fistula. She lived in the hospital a year. Nobody ever caught this. So I tell them, and they do a scope and they can't find it. So they're like, oh no, you know, she's just, because she's in a wheelchair and it's sucking up in there and it's coming out. I said, no, the hell. I said, look, first off, I don't let her sit in her shit. I just had to talk rough and be that pet bull, because I'm telling you, the squeaky wheel gets oiled.
Definitely.
And I was still am hella squeaky.
Good. Yes, you are. That's
why
we're friends.
I'm gonna be her. You're gonna look at my children.
That's right. That's
you're
right.
not gonna push nothing on them I don't want.
That's right.
So
what's a fistula? For those that don't
opening.
know.
This particular opening was between her vagina and her behind. So when she would poop, it would come out of both holes. Mm-hmm. Now, she always forever had UTIs. She was always being treated for UTI. So it made sense, right? But so for 2 years, they tried to find it. And finally, this one doctor was doing a scope and he like tilted her hip forward and voila, she has a fistula. I started crying because by this time it had been 2 years and I was like, hey, she has this, you know? And what I did was I gave her some of her stool softener so she could go to the bathroom. Mm-hmm. And I did it at dialysis when I knew we were going to be at dialysis, because I made those nurses, hey, come here and look. And I held her open. And as it came, they were like, she has a fistula. I said, I've been saying that, you know, I've been saying that for, there's some wonderful nurses and some wonderful doctors. But let me tell you something, mothers, don't ever think because you're not educated enough, you know your child, you have a PhD in your child. You make them hear you. You make them hear you. I can't tell you the numerous times when I'm like, she had a tendency of oozing. So then it would start bleeding. Every surgery, they darn near have to go back in her cauterizer and stop the bleeding. And I could look at her and tell them. Fast forward ahead, I had so many doctors' personal cell phone numbers because I had told them something and she got close to a life and death situation before they seen something I told them a couple of days prior to it happening. And so they were like, if you even get a hint of something not being right, give me a call. And that's how the relationship was. They knew that I would fight, and that there is challenges in when you adopt kids and you have other kids. Mind you, I was too busy trying to be in a life when I had my kids, but when I had Mackenzie, I was doing better financially and I was more settled down. So I had that time to give her, and it created problems at first with my kids, you know, and I totally understand because they probably wanted to see that mom, but I wasn't that mom then.
You couldn't be. You were on survival mode, Ronna.
Right.
Four children on your own, surviving. Don't want to take money from the pimp or the drug pushers, trying to make your own, trying to, you know, and this is the story of many, many mothers and fathers across the world. And we got to let go of that guilt and hope that our children come to understand that we did the best we could when we were in
with what we knew at that time in our life. And even now, and it's still a learning thing, like, you know, but what I did do with my kids, all I knew is that I could keep it real and tell the truth. And sometimes it was probably something like, oh my God, I don't have any filters, and one of my granddaughters is just like me. I'm like, oh my God, you are my child in another. And that's like double trouble for her mama. She was, oh Lord, my mama all over again. Because I was like, I was like,
that's quite shocking, because I've met all 4 of your adult children, and they're all very successful, very opinionated, very outspoken, very, self-autonomous individuals. So this grandchild must be a nightmare. A nightmare. Oh my God, Ronna. All right, so let's go to this is great. I mean, we could spend 2 weeks here, so let's
I know I'll probably skip it.
Well, I know there's a lot, but again, we're trying to highlight how amazing.
Let me go. Say how God, do you guys see with my story, how God brought it around full circle? Because I used to be a part of the problem. And this is what a lot of us say, that sell dope, they're going to get it anyway. No, honey, we're a part of the problem. And it takes a while when you could look in the mirror and say, you were a part of the problem. I was a part of the problem. But since then, I've been a part of the solution, because I do want to make it to heaven. I want to make it this place good. And in the process, I'm doing something great, and it feels good. And here's with the special need, you know how we have a desire to be needed. It's like they need you. So they feed your ego or they feed whatever that is, but they appreciate you by the smiles or the saying mom when they were never supposed to speak again because one of the parents got angry and shook them until they got brain damage. And I've had doctors tell me, I just want you to know what you're getting into. See all this blood around his brain. That's what my son, Ja'Cory.
Who you also adopted from the group home, another beautiful child.
He was in another group home. Mackenzie's social worker, we ended up being the best of friends. Miss Mize, she retired, but she was like, you have to meet this little boy. He would be perfect with you guys, Ronna. And I must say, it's a certain rhythm and we flow. And she knew what she was talking about, but I'm like, okay, 2 wheelchairs. I got to lift everybody. I got to think about this, and I was like, how am I going to do it? But everything worked out. My biggest thing was like, how could I live with her? I reached out to all of her family and I was like, could you come and get her? She doesn't belong in a place like this. We have profound mental retarded people here who can't stimulate her brain. She needs to be around kids that she could talk to, and stuff like that. And everybody, they just really couldn't do it. So I was like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to work all those hours and sit at dialysis 3 days a week? And then the nurse who had her, because I always kept in touch with everybody and I kept the doors open for the parents. And this is why I did. For one, Mackenzie was old enough to know and love her family, So for whatever they did wrong, how could I point the finger at them when I came from that? Yeah. How could I point the finger at them? And sometimes you may need to know what was going on with those parents. And let's not forget this part. If it wasn't for those parents, you wouldn't be a mother because they had these children. So, and they usually when you just let them know the door is going to be open, they won't dodge it half the time, So whatever.
Let's go back a little bit here because there's just so much in your beautiful story. So we're focused on Mackenzie. You meet her in the group home and her physical condition is she's only got 1 kidney that's barely functioning. She cannot walk. Her body has not fully developed to the age it normally would because she's lacking organs, and her little hands weren't even, she made these bracelets with these teeny tiny little half fingers. She was this teeny tiny, she looked like a 4-year-old. And she had the mental capacity. Sometimes she was shockingly brilliant,
Right,
but other
right.
times she was like a
Probably about 10 years old, huh?
yeah, 6 to 10 year old little girl, depending on. So you adopt her, you bring her home. She can't walk. She's in a wheelchair. She's in diapers. She's got to go to
And at
dialysis.
the time, she was born with club foot. Oh, and mind you, she was a fighter since the womb. She was a twin, and the other twin aborted itself. She was born at 5 months, and she made it. And she was diagnosed with polycystic kidney disease, but when I did get with this one urologist, he said he thinks that she was misdiagnosed.
Wow, crazy.
So I don't know, but anyway, the one kidney wasn't formed, it was in little pieces. So she did, when she was 4, she got a kidney transplant when she was with her parents, and it rejected right away. She had a stroke. So that's how she ended up in a wheelchair. She had right side weakness, and she was born with a club foot, but you should have seen her little twisted, contorted body. She would hold on to the couch and walk around, and oh my God. And then when I met her, I had like a tri-level apartment, and she would scoot and climb up all of the stairs, you know, and play with the twins, and they hung out and everything. But so it was always something. When I tell you it was always something, we would go to dialysis and she would start getting a fever, and a infection would come out of nowhere. And I learned how to pray even more. I learned how to fast. That was our life a lot. And one day would turn into 2 weeks, you know.
So let's bring in Jacory. So again, not mentioning who may have harmed him in the family, but this little baby boy comes into the group home, another group home that you're working at, and you fall madly in love with this little boy who has severe brain damage because he's suffering from baby shaking syndrome. So somebody has taken this 8-week-old baby newborn and shaken him so hard, they've literally broken his brain. So you come across him. How old was he when you adopted him?
It was he was 2. He was 2 while his social worker, she finally got me to go to go see him. So I would go visit him, always, me and Mackenzie, me and the twins. And finally, like, I got him for his birthday weekend, and that was the 27th of May. And it was 2010. Yeah, because it was going to be, in his birthday is May 28th. So he was going to be 2 years old. So I'm driving home with him. And mind you, I knew I was going to get him. So I started buying him clothes, because I feel like the attention is on them. They're in a wheelchair, whatever. So I always dressed them really nice and kept them looking good, because even us, when we dress up, we feel good when we look good, you know. So I had the clothes. I didn't want to take those clothes that he had, but I got a call from his social worker. She was like, guess what? The paperwork went through. You don't have to take them back. I was like, yes. And they were calling me like, are you going to come get his things? I said, no, donate them. He already had clothes.
That's amazing. So there was adoption number 2.
Yeah. And so I brought them, and this was like, I fostered them all first and then adopted, because it was a process. But so I get home. So now I got 2 children in wheelchairs now. So I get a phone call from a social worker, and she says, Miss Williams, will you please do me a favor? I said, what do you need, Miss Mines? Because we were like so cool. She said, this woman went and had another child, and we had to take her. We don't have anybody to get her because it's like Friday and it's after hours. Will you give us 2 weeks to get family placement for her? That's Jacory's biological sister, same mother, same father. and she was 3 months. And they said, honey, this girl been talking to me the whole time. She was going and talking about it and everything. So I'm like, oh shoot, I had to stop at Target, buy a car seat for the baby, buy Pampers, buy a bottle, buy formula, everything, because I didn't have nothing for a child. And she didn't come with just a bottle or two. Whatever was in that diaper bag is all I have. I still to this day have the blanket she was wrapped in.
Oh.
So that was 2 weeks. They said, well, it's been 12 years. I'm now 12 years old. So I adopted all of them. But I couldn't have done none of this without my wonderful children, my friends, everybody that was like, when they say it takes a village, could you imagine with special needs kids, it takes even a bigger village. And I had that village, I swear, like when one would tire out, God had that other one right there in place where I was able to take her to dialysis, be at every hospital, stay with her, be at every hospital, stay with him. And that's because of everyone who helped. So in the end, everything worked out, which it always does.
Yeah.
Everybody came together and we did it.
Yeah.
And still doing it.
Ronna, may I take a moment just to highlight, you in particular, the mother, the background that you've come from, where people looked at you like that's your life. Your life is in prison, in and out of prison. You have 4 children with 4 different men. You start selling drugs at 15. You're involved with a man years older than you who would have been put in prison had the age ranges been talked about.
Daddy tried, believe that.
But you came from a good family. You had a really good mom and a really great dad. And so it wasn't about your nurture, your natural nurture from your mom and dad. It was something in your nature that was looking for the fast life. Yet you turned it around on many levels. And now you've gone ahead and you've had your own 4 beautiful children, had all those trials and tribulations. And I can attest, because I know your kids, 4 very strong, beautiful, successful, loving, respectful. Don't mess with them because they will whoop your ass, because they are their mother. They are their mother.
How you doing?
Right? Success. And then at a time when you should be ideally like dating and having another phase of life, you take on 3 babies. And 2 of them have the most needs. I call them special gifts as opposed to special needs. All these special gifts that need 24-hour attention, but you did it and you've done it. And to me, Ronna, women and men like you that do what you do, you're the celebrities, you're the heroes, you're the heroines, you're the leaders, the town should come to. Ronna, how do I do this? Ronna, how do I deal with this? This is the knowledge that we need to help run the communities that we're in, that are so separated from each other, from love. But you are that's why I'm bringing you on my beautiful, small but mighty channel. That is it's so, it is mighty, girl, mighty.
You touch plenty of people.
Totally, but it's so important to have your testimony, your story, to touch as many people, to touch the hearts and minds and souls of mothers and fathers who maybe didn't have a child with challenges, but still went through the things that you did. Still know that there is light.
I promised God when I was in that jail cell, I said, God, if you just change me, just help me, because I keep getting pulled back. I said, if you just change me, I will give your testimony. I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I will stand up and give testimony. And I have to anybody. Yeah, I don't care. I don't care what you think about me, because guess what he thinks about me? He must think a lot about me to take me from a mighty long way. You're gonna have some church up in here. Hallelujah. But he did that. He did that. And, when I look back, I can remember like having summer jobs at 13 where we worked at community centers with kids and special kids. My kids used to tell me, because we would go to Venice Beach whenever we came to LA when we still lived in Fresno, they were like, Mom, I don't care if we go to the moon, somebody special is gonna find you and start telling you all their business. And it's true. I was a magnet. I said, yeah, birds of a feather.
Yeah.
Do what? They flop together and you guys in it, you know. But I because of the things that I experienced growing up, I was real protective of my kids. Like, you're not going over there. Mama, can I spend the night? And then they want to know why. So guess what Mommy Bear used to have to say? Because I don't know who fucking who over there, but I hope I didn't. That's not. But I had to keep it like that because things could happen to you that you'll never in your lifetime forget or never be the same about.
That's right. That's right.
And, you know, so I watched over and I was like, bring them all here. So my house was always the happening house. I had a basketball court, a tetherball. I had the first video games, computers, whatever a child could do. And to this day, I don't know how to cook a little bit of food because I always fed a mini. And it reminded me of the Bible and the story with the fish and the bread. It was always like enough. And like I said, our neighborhood, where everybody watched over each other, I remember we would have fish fried. I was like, okay, stop your money. Even the local dope dealers on their way down the street to hustle their drugs, they would give me money. But guess what? That helped feed them, feed my family, whatever had to be done, you know, to make it. And we made it. And we had that love in that community. You know, we did. We had that. There was some that made it like, but that's okay. Because for the most part, I was raised by so many different women, you know, from the South to wherever. And also my mother was Italian, so she didn't cook soul food. So I had to go in their kitchens like, oh, how do you cook this? So the neighborhood taught me how to cook, you know, that way too. So, but I always had somebody's kid at my house having sleepovers to living with me. Each one of my kids have bought someone home to live with me. I helped in the raising of the rearing of my son's brother. And today that's my son too. And his mom, and she got her life together and stuff. And then we helped each other. I mean, I helped take care of them. I even opened up a daycare so that I couldn't afford to be home taking care of them, but I could if I was bringing money in to take care of them. So we did all of that. But
amazing. Ronna, so industrious. Oh my God, to you and to the women and men who've done what you've done, just amazing. And the fact that the children, I met one lady, I'll come to the story of Mackenzie and the video we made, but this one lady called me one time and she told me that she wanted to give back to you because your house was the safe house. And when the children in the neighborhood were being abused and beaten, they would run to Auntie Ronna's. They knew they'd have a safe place to go to. They'd have a meal in their belly. And that's who you've been to many, not just your own 4 grown-up children now, but many, many, many children and adults. And now who they are adults and they just love and adore you. I want to go forward, if it's okay with you, I'd like to share the day I met your daughter, Mackenzie. So it was a very magical day. I had been working with the children, the African-American youth, for 6 months, winning their trust and working with them, hanging out on Sundays in their ministry, in their youth room at the Agape Church, which is run by Dr. Michael Beckwith, a very well-known speaker, teacher, preacher. Now, at this time of life, when there's all these different stories about who's this and who's that, I have no interest in anything negative about the man, because the man I saw was a beautiful, loving being. The children, the teenagers that I had the honor of getting to know, and I was writing my book, The African American Kid, and interviewing these amazing children. These children, these teenagers had come from all walks of life. There wasn't a single non-leader in that room. And the woman that ran that ministry was Arlene Hilton.
Yes.
Reverend
Arlene.
Reverend Arlene Hilton. Hilton. Arlene, we love you, girl. We love you, girl. That woman is responsible for turning many, many lives around. Arlene, I don't know, my darling, whether you'll see this, but I send you my love. Reverend Arlene Hilton, she's a legend. And the children I interviewed would always say, she saved me, she gifted me, she helped me. Reverend Arlene Hilton from the Agape Church. I don't know whether she's still there. I've been out of touch for a couple of years. Yeah, God love her. So anyway, so she invited me in. It was a very, I remember sitting there saying to all these kids one day, so hi, I'm Dani. And, you know, you're probably sitting there thinking, what am I doing? Why am I writing a book about African-American youth? And this beautiful young lady said, yeah, I was kind of thinking that. I said, I'm so proud of you. Right? It's right, though. Who is this white woman coming into this very special, you know, beautiful sanctuary for these African-American youth with their own problems? That somebody white woman coming in who's going to write a book. Who the hell am I? Then I explained to them, I grew up in a blended family. So I don't see the color that some people see. I grew up with Nigerian, Ghanaian, you know, mixed race, and have cousins, adopted, first generation and second generation. Now, I don't need to qualify that, because balls to that, balls to people that are racist, balls to you all. Shame on you, and I don't care. Kiss my ass, shame on your face. There should be no racism, right? No racism. But anyway, so on this particular day, all the children, the young adults, we were all in the church because it was Reverend Michael Beckwith's birthday. And so I'm sitting, so the church could suit 2,000 people. And he's on stage and the choir is on stage and he's got a giant cake at the front of the stage and it's all lit and everyone's singing happy birthday. And I was looking forward and all the chairs are on an angle because there's so many chairs, and I felt something. And when we weren't normally inside the church, we were normally in the youth center, right? Well, the church service was going on, and something tapped my shoulder awkwardly. And I look around and I can see these women and they're holding their arms and we're singing happy birthday to you. Stevie went, happy birthday. So everyone's like dancing their ass off. And these women are arching their arms. And I see these teeny tiny little withered legs. And it's Kenzie. And I see this child and I go under the arch and I bend down and she's sitting there. She's got her phone on her lap. She's looking at me and I went, hello, darling, are you all right? She goes, I want to get to the front. And so I said, can I push you? I'm so glad I honored her. Can I push you? Not to assume that she couldn't wheel her own chair. She said, yes, please. So I pushed that little munchkin all the way to the front of the stage, in front of the TV cameras, in front of the celebrities, in front of the lights, in front of everybody. And I got down at her level. And we were just a bit lower than the table and the cake. And I got down and we sat there. And I was so happy. She was so excited. She's like taking pictures on her phone, looking at Dr. Michael Beckwith because she's so in awe of him. And it's such an exciting moment. And then he comes off stage and he blows out his candles and he looked at her and he beamed at her. And then he went back on stage and she turned to me and she said, he smiled at me. And I said, of course he did, darling. Of course he did. And then she said, my name is Mackenzie. I'm 17 and I have no kidneys. And the second she said that, a light bulb went from her heart into my heart and I was done. It was over. It was over for me. And I gently took her and I said, where's your mama? And I was making my TV documentary, Kids Soul Speak. And I said, where's your mommy? Where's your mama? And even though she was 17 again, she wasn't there. She wasn't a 17-year-old child. She was a 6 to 10, sometimes older, sometimes younger. So I wheeled her to the back of the church and there you are, still dancing. It's big, larger than life mama bear. And there is
I had your Corey.
There is a wheelchair. Another child right there. How you manage this life, girl, I don't know. But anyway, I met you, we exchanged numbers. And then I called you and I said to you, I am just Dani. I know nothing. I had no platform at all. But I said to you, I believe if we make a video together, we will get a kidney for your child. We will get a kidney for your child. So we got together and we made a video, and it's you, me, and Mackenzie. I'm just talking to camera. We all are. And we're asking for people to understand that you can donate one of your kidneys and still live a very strong, healthy life. It's like we're born with a spare kidney. You can save a life, whether it's a child or an adult, right now in this life, and leave a living legacy inside a person, inside a being. There should be no shortage of organs anywhere. We have the technology for it not even to be. But anyway, let's not go down that road. So not only did we receive the offer of, I still can't believe that people donated their kidneys like they're alive. It was amazing, wasn't it? It was so amazing. We had 3 people that came forward and they all said, I will donate my kidney to Mackenzie. Mind blowing. And one was a beautiful woman who I'd done a church service for, I'd done readings for, and anyway, whatever. It was just so amazing how everything kind of came together. And this lovely lady, she was the first one. She had to go to have surgery herself. And the second woman that stepped forward was one of the little girls that used to run to your house when her parents were misbehaving and being violent to her. And she'd run to your house and grab her brothers and you'd feed them. She's like, I want to give Miss Ronna, I want to help her. So she also offered her kidney, and then she got pregnant. And then the third person was Steve. And for the last 2 or 3 years, we thought that Steve would be the match, and we were holding on. So we put the film on hold because I always thought Mackenzie would be there. Here's Mackenzie. She has no kidneys. Here's the donor, amongst all the other stories of divorce and being African-American and all these other subjects. And then I always imagined and fantasized the final part of the film would be Mackenzie's, her transplant, again, giving that message to humanity that there's so much us humans can do to help and lift each other. Anyway, that was the plan, and that's where we got, and it was incredible. And of course, we know that coming to Mackenzie Bear, that the last couple of years, the story that we'd all hoped didn't pan out the way that we'd hoped. And she's currently residing in the heavenlies. Would you be okay to discuss a little bit more about her character, her personality, and the story leading up to her passing?
Oh, yes. So it was in, I started doing her hemodialysis at home, and she was like looking better than she ever looked, because I could put her on the machine anytime, of course. And like at the hospital, they go 3 days a week. So they have to do a whole bunch of pulling off of her, pulling fluids off and cleansing her. So I used to just wipe her out. But this machine is called the Next Stage, in case anybody is interested, because the social worker came up to me and said, you don't want to do home hemo, huh? I said, why wouldn't I? She didn't ask me. I've never heard about that machine before until that moment. And then she explained to me, and I said, I'm interested. And they taught me how to do it. So I started doing it at home. And Kenzie got a blood clot in May of 2020. So they put her on blood thinners, and they said they wanted to open up an artery because it was clotted off, because that's just being on hemodialysis many years. It's one of the complications. But they wanted to open it so that if she got her kidney, that she would be able to, they could hook it up to that particular artery. So they needed to try to open it up, stent it, or put a balloon, or whatever they needed to do. So every time it seemed like when she went in, it was complications, or for a lot of times. So let me rewind back. I heard this voice in my head. It was like telepathy. And it said that she would pass in October I don't even know if I told you that. So each October, I begged God, I said, I can't do this. Like, I can't lose her. I'm hoping, like, it's not so. For 2 Octobers in a row, she was in and out of there. So that was, I guess, 2018 and 2019. So I was really scared because I know I heard this. The only time I heard it before was when my father said, he won't be around long. And he was gone in like 6 months. So I said, well, let me plan, because they wanted to open up this artery. I said, let me let her enjoy her birthday. Let me do it in August, so it's not in October. So we went in August. August, like 7th was the surgery. And afterwards, her blood was low. I said, she's a bleeder. You might want to pay attention to that. And they were like, oh, because of COVID. And I get in the meetings with all of the doctors when they had their little huddles. And they're like, oh, because of COVID, we have to meet separately. I said, that's dumb as hell, because you guys all end up in her room anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't mean to say that.
Yeah, we'll just skip the word because of the fuck.
Okay. So anyway, I told them this for like 3 days. And finally, the 3rd day, I said, I want everybody in here right now. And I'm not playing, or I will get the rapid response team. I said, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Her blood pressure is way too low. Her blood pressure is normally not that low. She's bleeding somewhere. And so they were like, and then by then she was having a headache. And her dad said she needs to get a CT. So she got the scan, and they were like, neurals on their way up, the rapid response team. And I'm telling her, baby, in a minute, a lot of doctors are going to be in here. I don't want you to be afraid. But they seen a brain bleed, and it was a big one. So I was like, I'm thinking, I'm like, oh my God, So they rush off into surgery, and it's the nighttime. It's like 9 o'clock at night. So we're paced, and they come in there. They call us in this room hours later, and it's all kind of doctors. And I'm like, and her neurosurgeon says, I'm so sorry. And I just started breaking. I said, no. And her nephrologist, her kidney doctor, came and grabbed me. She's alive. I stood up. I said, God damn it. The first thing that needs to come out your mouth is she is okay. But I could handle anything after that.
Yeah.
So it was a learning experience. So those 2.5 months we were in there, she passed October 20th. But this was amazing. Her heart stopped for 50 minutes during this surgery. This little girl came back to dancing, moving, even while she was on the ventilator. So they took her off the ventilator, and all the doctors were coming around. They were like, you are amazing. Because that night when she came out of the OR, they had, which was August 10th, they worked on her, keeping that blood pressure high, that heart beating all night long. And all I could do is give it and pray and just, keep going to look at her. And I keep whispering in her ear, Mackenzie, baby, you're going to have to fight you ever had to fight in your lifetime. You're going to have to fight if you're trying to stay around. But something happened in May when she went in there for her blood clot. The first time I heard her say out of her mouth, I'm tired. I'm tired of always being here. And I said, baby, what do you mean you tired? Are you ready to go be with God? Or like, what kind of tired? You need to let me know what kind of tired you are. No, I'm just tired of always getting sick. I'm tired of always getting stuck. I'm tired of always having to go to the hospital. That was the first time I heard in our whole life together. Wow. And we were going on 13 years. So it was just a roller coaster ride up and down. And I could remember after a couple of days after she was moving everything, she was singing songs. So she was remembering everything. Her memory was good, everything. This was at 50 minutes. And I came to realize, like, this was the time God granted me that he knew I needed. Because we get so selfish when we have a loved one that's sick. And even though I was there through it all, we don't know what they really feel inside. And it is so selfish of us to try to hold them here, even though we do it because we love them so much.
Yeah.
But it took me seeing her go through so much in those 2.5 months to let go. And she had to have, they didn't put her scalp back on because, she coded, so they had to save her life and leave the bone out. And when and then her head started swelling, so they had to put a shunt in. So it was just one thing after another, after another, after another.
Yeah.
And then they decided to put the bone back in. So a little bit after that, I had went home and took a shower and slept there. And then I came back early in the morning and she was up talking. And then she just went out on me and she's like, I said, what's wrong? And so we're like brainstorming, what's happening? I said, her sugar, check her sugar. They checked her sugar, it was like 54. So they gave her sugar. But what it was she had gotten meningitis, fungal and bacterial. Okay, so the bone's in there. So, it takes a while for the veins and capillaries, all that to grow back together. So she's getting medicine, but it's not getting to the part that it needed to get to but they got rid of that bacterial infection. But that fungal infections are very hard to get rid of. So eventually it just led to like decline, and she was really uncomfortable, and she would like call us through the night. Me and her dad was there the whole time, and we would take turns. And her mom wanted to come, but neither one of us was willing to give her that time. And I feel bad because I knew Kenzie always made it out the hospital. I knew she was coming home. So I told her, I said, no, I'd rather her enjoy you, because mind you, her mother had came to Los Angeles, but was doing everything else and really didn't get very much time with her. And Mackenzie kept begging her to come and see her. And I remember it was like before she went in the hospital in May, she said, I'm never going to see you again.
Wow.
And Mackenzie, why would you say something? She said, because she's always lying to me. She always says she's going to come and she doesn't. And she takes care of my sister, because after she got all her other kids taken, she did have another daughter, but she never lost her. Yeah. So Mackenzie, so I was like, don't come now, because she's out of it most of the time. I want her to know that you're there, and I want her to enjoy you.
Yeah,
so
amazing.
At home,
right?
Mind you, whenever they came, I would let them stay with me.
Yeah, I know. Can we go back a little bit here, because there's so much beauty, even though obviously the ending, baby girl is now in heaven, but there was so much incredible stuff and things that happened during the time that she was in hospital. One of the most remarkable things between you and I as really close friends was that my fiance Jeff, who you knew and Mackenzie knew, they were in comas at the same time. And I remember you and I being on the phone and like crying and praying, and we're like, that was too much, man. That was too fucking much. And I remember people saying, oh, he doesn't give you more than you can handle. It for me at that point, I'm like, fuck that urban myth that we're all told. It's like, oh, that's your karma. La, 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 la. Sometimes you gotta bust out. You just got to feel that emotion, and you got to stop worrying about going to hell or being judged or being a good girl or a good boy. And I remember for me, I'm like, seriously, God, my husband to be is in a coma, and my Kenzie bear is in a coma. Right. Are you shitting me? And then it was like, all of a sudden you called me and you said, call her. And I'm like, what? You said, phone her. And I'm like, hold on. She's in a coma. And you said, I'm going home to see Jamie and Corey because you hadn't left her side. And her blood father had not left her side. This is weeks. And then I'm so confused because Mackenzie's in a coma. And you said, I'm leaving the hospital to check on the kids. You've got this village raising your two at home. And then, so I'm like, okay. So I FaceTime Mackenzie and she answers the phone. She's got the biggest bandage over her head because her scalp is so big. And I'm like,
you look like a turban.
Oh my God. I'm like, Mackenzie. She's like, hi, Dani. And I said, oh my God. I said, darling, hello. And she said, hi, Dani. And then I said, you're so beautiful. And she said, I know I am. You know, it was just such a beautiful moment. It was just so, and like you said, that child, she was like at the size of a sparrow. She was this teeny tiny, withered legs, a crooked little body that had never fully formed. And yet that child had such a light in her and such a spirit in her that she just touched everybody. She did all, and we said it, we're not just saying it because she's now in heaven, we're saying it because it was through this little worm.
And everybody who knows her knows that to be true. She would, you couldn't be mad at her. Me and my friends would fight. Like, I'm like, fuck that bitch. I'm not calling her. And Mackenzie, hi, how you doing? And I always let her, because I said, for one, we're grown and we shouldn't be acting stupid like that, but I'm gonna let her talk, I'm gonna let her do her. So it's fine, I don't care, but it's so funny. And the night, can I move on to when she died? The day that she died, it was different. She was going into surgery, but like days leading up to that, I could see her veins were like giving out rather. And she had a port like in her leg. And I think it was a 3-port and probably 2 were just working. And I'm like, okay, a lot of things were happening. Not to mention like that February, before all of this happened, February 2020, she was in Cedars. They were giving her a medication to lower her antibodies so that she could receive a kidney whenever she got one. So, and it's a cancer drug. So her immune system was low, right? Anyway, after she coded the first time, her platelets kept being low and they had to keep giving her platelets. Her daddy even gave her some a couple of times, So that day she was going into surgery, we always prayed. Sometimes Mackenzie would lead the way or call her grandfather, her father's father, because he was a preacher. But she just laid there this time and she was like, I prayed to her in her ear. It just felt different when they rolled her away. And so I went in her room and I cleaned up her room. And after living in the hospital for 2.5 months, you accumulate so much stuff. So I was taking stuff that I didn't need anymore, dirty clothes, so I could go home and wash them after she was all right. And I had brought her new bedding. So I always kept her home stuff on her bed, her blankets, her special blankets and pillows. And so, and then I went and brought her one of these like Tempur-Pedic cushions for her bed because, they're in the bed all this time and she had gotten skin breakdown. So, and I was just trying to heal her every which way I could and make her comfortable. So she went into surgery. So after I cleaned up everything, they called me about 1:30 and they were like, okay, we're just really getting started. We've done this and that. She's fine and this and that. So I said, I'm gonna take a nap, to kind of pass the time because the nerves were going on, honey. Mm-hmm. And when I dozed off, I was sleeping and I felt her hand slip out of mine into white, just a white light. And I jumped up and I'm like, I'm scared to open my mouth and say it. And then here comes two ER doctors walking up, and they were like, we need to talk to you. I said, I don't want to talk. She said, but we have to talk to you. And then she said she coded again for 14 minutes. Her heart stopped. We got her back. We got a pulse, but it's taking a lot of medicine to keep her heart beating and to keep her blood pressure up. And we're going to do everything we can. We're not going to kick you out. You could stay. They had to stop and they sewed her head together because she coded. And you could stay in here. And I remember it took them a long time, and it was nurses in there looking at the monitors. And I was looking, they say, we're just watching. That's all. She's okay. They have a pulse. They have a heartbeat. And so I was in my area where I slept, which was the back of her. And when they wrote her in finally, I said, can I talk to her, please? And then they said, yeah. I said, Kenzie, if you're tired and you want to go, it's fine. I enjoyed you and I'm going to be all right. You know, I said, I love you. But if you're trying to stick around, you're going to have to fight hard, baby. And it just didn't feel like she was there. Really, I didn't feel that connection that we had. I didn't feel it. So she was in the room and we were talking for a while, you know, and she had that turban on, and it was white when she came in there and it was red because her platelets were real low. So she was bleeding. And I was like, this isn't good. I was talking to her. So she coded again, and they got her heartbeat again, got her blood pressure again. And then they were going to bring the heart lung machine in. They said, here's the thing with this. We'll try this, but we have to give her blood thinners. Well, that wouldn't be any good because she's already bleeding because her platelets, she can't, and she's running out of places, veins, and they're trying to push blood, and they are having to do it manually because they're blowing veins. So a bunch of stuff was going on. So she coded again, and they were working on her, you know, hard. And they called the neuro team in there because, like, with every time they were, you know, giving her compressions, the blood was coming out because I'm in behind her, right? And her dad's on that side. And I'm like, you know, she's gone. I don't even feel like she's gone, and just she's tired. And I want to call it, you know. And then I said, out of respect for her daddy, let me talk to him. And when I told him, he said, no, I want them to do everything. And I said, okay. I said, but she's tired. And I said, she's bleeding. And then I heard them say something like her blood was 5.4. So that means like at 6, you know, they give you blood. So they're trying to give her blood, platelets, and the medication to keep the heart going, to keep the blood pressure doing, but they're not having access. You know, they're running out of access. And so she called it again. They're working on her. And so he said, go ahead, you know. So I stood up and I said, I want to thank everybody. And they said, call the code. And everybody looked at me like, are you crazy? Because everybody fell in love with her like you and I did. And I swear her going away had to be the most beautiful thing. And I know it's crazy to say it, but let me tell you something. It's like the NICU, the ICU stood still. No bells were going off. And it had to be about 10 doctors, nurses, the clergyman, myself, her dad, one of the social workers, somebody else. It was a room full of people who loved this child, because when she did come through, she was making her money. She was selling these. And when she wasn't selling them, I made one for everybody. I mean, the housekeepers, the man that pick up the trash. I made so many of these. Everybody was wearing them. And I mean, everyone was in there. And when I told them, I said, I want to thank you. You don't have to do that. They were like, you don't have to do that. I said, look, let me tell you something. I said, I don't have to, but I appreciate you guys because you guys took care of this little girl, man. And it took all of us. I said, I just from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you. And it was something I had cussed their ass out and then gave them teaching moments. But we ended up being the best of whatever, you know. They stood in a line, and I kid you not, her doctors did the ugly cry. The men, the women, the nurses, and they came to hug us. And then the neurosurgeon passed by, and he said, I thought he said something while we're standing hugging. I'm ready to bite his head off. And he said, I need one too. A hug. And nobody cared about that thing that was supposed to be going around. Everybody was hugging, kissing, crying. We shared tears, pain, laughter, everything, because everybody was rooting for Kenzie. And it was the most beautiful thing. Like, I'm like, wow, she went out of here like the celebrity she is, because that's what a real celebrity is.
Yes.
Went out there and God gave me a strength. Girl, I always thought I would die right when she did.
Oh no.
He gave me a strength. No mother should see the things I seen in that room that day, but he gave me a strength. And I'm not saying I grieve. I just got up, Friday from a week down on the couch, felt like weights on top of me. You know, I had to get up and I have to keep going. I got to take care of Corey, but I mean, just in grief. And it's like, I know she's in a better place. I get it, but I miss the fuck out of her here.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm inside of that. And I've tried to talk, although I don't give people, I've tried to talk to somebody, but I'm like, I want somebody going through what I'm going through to talk to me. Like, because you can't talk to me. You can tell me what I should be doing, but until you can feel it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I pray a lot and I try. Every day I try, you know, but I'm not suicidal or anything like that by far, but it's hard. It's a whole person missing that was so full of light. And I realized how much I needed that light. And that light gave me my light. And so did all the nurses when they would come to work, even the pharmacists. I remember they loved her so much. Like, they brought us a bracelet. Mine said Mama Bear and hers said Fearless, the pharmacist. And Mackenzie, when she came back to and off of that ventilator, she wanted her coffee because she would get a caramel
Starbucks.
from Starbucks, baby. They brought her cards. It was just a beautiful thing. I'm telling you, she was surrounded with so much love. She was surrounded with love, love, love. I'm telling you, like, and when that was happening, when she came in the room, her daddy said, what is that right there? Mackenzie loves sunsets. He said, Ronna, look over there. It was in the west of the sky, the sun was setting, and it was a big old angels out of clouds with the wings wide open. I said, someone's coming to save her or to take her home. It was mind blowing, like all these spiritual things, like you can't make this shit up.
Yeah.
You know?
No, darling. Oh, my love. I know, I remember
You're gonna be all right, Dani, some kind of damn way. Like, now they're watching over us, though.
Yeah.
That's the good thing. And I know sometimes I'm like, I know, Mackenzie, you don't want me sad, but shit, I can't get up today. And I watch myself every day. So I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna clean up today. Then the next day, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna clean up today. And a whole week passed by.
And it's okay. It's okay. And this is
And
how
I cry when I need to cry, but I do lie. I love when people call, how you doing? I'm okay. And I'm like, you lying bitch. I'm saying it. know,
Yeah.
'cause you gotta make a smile or make, but
Yeah, yeah. And this journey of grief, Ronna, you know, I mean, I've lost my husband to be, as you know.
yes,
And you know, we're still, you and I, our beloveds died very soon together. And you know, again, we've had each other to cry and scream and rage and rail and weep and be at all hours of the night at different times. And we've been there for each other. But again, like you say, to lose a child is something we can only imagine. We can only imagine.
right.
To actually lose a child, your child, whether she came through your body in this lifetime or she did not,
Right.
this was your baby girl. No one can truly know what that's like unless they've been through it. And no one can know what it's like to lose a husband, you know, a beloved like that, unless they've been through it. We imagine worst case scenario, but I mean, I've done that myself in the past as a counselor and a therapist. And when it happened to me, like Safer, you can't. But we need each other. We need each other. And like you said, for you to have people, women, mothers, fathers who've been through what you've been through and vice versa, this is where we pull strength from. This is where we share our stories. This is where we laugh and we scream and we cry and we heal and we let all of the agony and that pain come out, because it can't come out in one go. It takes time. It takes time. The grieving process, there's no timeline on it. There isn't, you know, and we
There's
have
no order. It's no order. You could go through certain things and revisit those certain things. And it's like, you could think you're great. And then one day you just get sucker punched and you back down.
Yeah. I mean, I remember one time I told you I was here in Costa Rica and I was buying new like cups and saucers and knives and forks, and I'm in this Chinese store and I'm walking around and I suddenly felt him, Jeff, my husband to be in, and I lost it. I lost my shit. And I'm like, oh my God, you're supposed to be with me buying fucking knives and forks and plates and fucking stuff for the house we're supposed to be living in together, and you fucking died. And so, you know, I was walking around and I was just doing the ugly cry, and I'm like, just canceled out anyone that was there. And you know, it was one of the best things I ever did, because it finally like helped me conquer, like, guys, we cannot care. If you are in pain, you just let that pain rip. Stop trying to behave, be good and do this, and you just let that pain rip. And Ronna, I know you've done the same. You've done the same, right? You do the same when you feel it. Do you not just like let it go when you're feeling her? And really, yeah.
I have to, because it's more room outside than in, you know. It's more room outside than in. It's hard to keep all that. Do you remember when we went? She was still here, and you had yet to meet your sweetheart when we went to Sedona.
Yes.
And remember, what was her name? What's her name? Van Adam.
Oh my God, Van.
She told you was gonna meet somebody, remember?
Yeah. She was an amazing reader, and she's since passed, which was Van. Oh my God, I can't remember her name. But that was a great story too. Let me just tell it quickly. So you're in your crazy house in Los Angeles with all these children, 2 in wheelchairs, and Jamie and your daughter's children, and crazy. So you used to hide in your closet to make your phone calls. So one time I'm coming to stay the night or the weekend, and then you're in the closet, and I come in the closet.
I have my little prayer thing set up.
Yeah, your little shrine. And then there was this stick, this really beautiful twisted piece of bark. And I'm like, oh my God, that's beautiful. And you said, I got it from Sedona. And then I suggested we might want to take it back, you know. And so we go to Sedona, and it was the most magical few days that you and I had together. And freedom for you, you know, a little bit of a break, because you're 24/7 with your kids all the time, of course, because of their needs and their special gifts. And I will never forget that we carried that stick to where, was it Cathedral Rock or Bell Canyon?
Bell.
All right. So you carried your stick and to round about the area where you remember picking it up and taking it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, right, I'm feeling the land, I'm feeling the energy here. I think I should throw it here. And so you stood there and you threw this bark, this big piece of wood, and it lands on the ground. And it was like it was magnetized to a matching piece of bark, the exact same twisted.
That's the magic of Sedona.
It was incredible. What do you remember from that?
I was like, it's where it's supposed to be, like it missed it. There's a saying on, I think it's at the airport loop when you do the walk, and it says, take with you the memories, but leave behind footprints, take with you memories.
Yes.
In other words, leave their shit alone.
Yeah.
They're rocks.
Right, exactly. Wow. Yeah, and that was one of many moments that you and I have enjoyed as friends, heart bonded over the years. And today, I told you earlier, I said, of all the broadcasts I've done so far, I feel like this is one of the most important in terms of, you know, over the last couple of years, especially, so many people have lost people. They've lost their children, their mums, their dads, their siblings. There's so many people who have left the planet.
So much loss.
And so what Ronna and I wanted to do, guys, was just really share, in particular, her story of Mackenzie and what a bright light she is, and the fact that you can donate a kidney and you can leave a living legacy inside of a child that may be on dialysis every day. And also that when you're in your grief, just let your grief, if it needs to overtake you, that's my advice as a therapist, and somebody's still in it, clearly, because there's no timeline on grief. You gotta let it out, let it out, you know. And if people are so like, I can't be around you, you keep talking about him or her or it too much, then they're not your people. They're just not your people. So what would you advise parents who have lost a child? What would you say to them about their grieving process, Ronna?
I think it is important to cry, and it's important to talk about and remember that child, because like how could you forget it? But it's also important to keep on going. We get stuck in it, and it's okay to grieve because, hey, I'm doing it. And I might do well for a month, and then it hits me out of nowhere, or certain anniversaries, like this year with her birthday coming up, because it took me down from her birthday in July to when she had her surgery to when she passed. So I was down all those months. I said, we're going to party for her birthday. I'm going to make damn sure I'm around people and we are partying, because that's what Mackenzie was about. I got to lift that light, and other people need us, but like we need to heal too, like, cause we're broken and we need to go through the healing process, and we are trying. And it's just, don't get stuck there. Your loved one, look for the signs. Tell them to send you something. Tell them to, I know I'm on the beach and I'm like, Mackenzie, I need a heart-shaped rock. She gave me like 5 of them that day. They're right there in my little shrine. But it's so wonderful. It's like our butterflies, our birds come. When I went to San Luis Obispo the other week, a bird come walking in our room, just walk around in my neighborhood. All the animals follow you everywhere. And it just walked in our room. I said, hi, sweetie. And then it just walked around looking like, okay, so let me go on back out here on the patio. They will send you signs. They will send you love. They will blink your lights. My son, he'll look up like laughing, and she used to stand over him, like lean on the couch, because she would have to hold on to something, and she would kiss him on his forehead. And one day, and it's not only one time, he was cracking up and he was going like this, like as if she was kissing that forehead, and she was. We couldn't see it, but he probably seen it. And he was cracking up. I said, that's your sissy. And when I said that, the light above him just was blinking on and off, real fast, like, yes. And so I talked to her, talk to them. They know you're here.
Yeah.
Talk to them. And you could talk to people like Dani, and they'll say things to you that, you know, she had to said, because only you know.
That's true. I remember one particular time shortly after she passed, I was sitting at this desk, and I was on watching a documentary on history or something, and all of a sudden the whole thing changed, and suddenly it was a Stevie Wonder story, and it was and I Love You song from Stevie Wonder, and I felt Mackenzie come behind me, and I'm like, holy shit, you remember? And I called you, and I'm like, and I was playing, I'm like, this just happened. She's
Yeah.
this is a message. And you were like, oh God, did I need to hear that today?
Because I was crying.
You were, and that
even
moment,
like when she first went, I said, I need you, baby. I need you to let me know that you made it there or whatever. I felt her touch my arm when I was dozing off. I said, I feel you, and I'm awake. And one night I went to sleep, and it's like she took me up. Now I could see my body on the couch. And I said, am I dead? She started laughing. She said, no, silly. And we went above the stars, and it just looked like bling. I said, oh my God, Mackenzie, this is so beautiful. And it's like, don't second guess, because it's happening. They're here. We just can't see them, and it hurts because we are spiritual beings having a human experience. We want that. But they're here, their spirits are with us, embracing us.
that is so true. That is so true. And that is so beautiful. And that is a beautiful note to end on. My darling friend. I love you so much, Ronna Williams.
I love you too.
So proud of you.
We had some good therapy today, some cry therapy.
You did.
Cry and laugh. And that's how we're going to heal.
That's
but you know what? God used her to bring us together, because he already knew what was going to happen in support of each other.
That's right.
Because we were going to lose something very special. And it's like,
yeah,
that's
so true. That's so true. That's so true. It's amazing. Oh my goodness.
Well, I'm your number one fan, Dani. I wish you all the best, baby. I wish you the best.
Oh, my darling, I do. You
deserve it.
Well, we're going to be walking this path until our last breath, my love, that's for sure. And we're both blessed, beyond blessed, that we knew in particular to real life, not just made up, not rose-tinted glasses after someone dies and you go, oh, they were this. You and I were honored to be with two of the greatest spiritual lights I have ever met in my life, ever.
Angels, huh?
They were absolute angels. They were truly gifted. They had a way to connect to spirit, to God, that I have never witnessed in my own life ever. These two, Mackenzie Williams and Jeff Smith. And we love.
And I'm an old dog. But she taught me something new.
Yeah, we never stop learning. Anyway, Ronna, any final words to the audiences and the parents that will see this broadcast?
You know what? This is a time, and we're human, and we need each other. And let's not be divided and separated behind things that really don't matter, behind colors or our thoughts or whatever, because love is what's gonna bring us all back together. And that's probably about it.
That's it. That's so beautiful.
I love you, good friend.
I love you, good friend. Love you so much. And so to all of you out there watching this broadcast, I know it's been very emotional, a real roller coaster, and it's very raw, and I'm not going to edit a single part, mostly because I don't know how to edit. But also because this is who I am, this is who you are, and this is who we should be, when we're bringing love and experience to help uplift others of our brothers and our sisters. And I would say to all of you out there, any arguments you're holding on to, any he did this and she did that, any I hate this and I hate that, if you can't let go of your wounding until the moment that you saw this broadcast, maybe you can now. Maybe you can just put your pain away. maybe you can just understand that no matter what your truth is, the other person's truth is different. And somewhere in the middle is the reality of what actually happened. And we all make mistakes and we should all learn to take responsibility. But if you can in this moment, the way that this world is so upside down, there's so much pain, there's so much division, there's so much deliberate racism and harm and wars and all the rest of it. Just connect, send a message, send some love to someone that you may have hurt or that may hurt you. And do not worry about the response. Because if you truly send that love and you don't expect anything back, you are literally letting go of a ton of pain that you have been carrying around, conscious or unconscious. And if that person does come back to you in a loving way, that's a beautiful gift that you gifted yourself. And little Mackenzie Williams in heaven and beautiful Jeff Smith in heaven, they're the kind of people that would take the greatest pleasure in seeing humanity love on itself.
Yes.
So my darling Ronna, again, love you so much. Thank you so much.
You.
To the beautiful audiences, thank you so much. I send you my love. Say that again, my darling.
Thank you, guys.
Definitely. And we'll see you soon.
All right.